is an affiliate of the federal government. NAS leaders of today also travel on presidential jets. They don't even hide it, take pictures and put it on Facebook. Part of the biggest problem this country has faced over time is that those who are supposed to lead this country through liberation are aspiring to become like the oppressors themselves. So the moment you start to envy a government convoy, as a NANS leader, you also want to have a convoy. You want to have a vanity plate that says NANS 001. When we had it in our time, it wasn't registered. We just going to put in OSU 001. But it was to antagonize the state. In our time, if the federal government have an official event at the University of Lagos, if they sing the national anthem of their own, we have our own national anthem. Nigeria will hail it. We'll sing it. As soon as they finish their own, we start our own. It's to antagonize the state as it was. But these days, they have all become part and parcel of the oppressive system because I think they envy the oppressors more than they value their liberation.
Let's talk about this system and what has been on the lips of lots of journalists and Nigerians this week, which is this full implementation of the Oronsanye report. Now, I want to know when it comes to the political will, because we've seen the Tinubu administration come out and say we are going to merge in some of these agencies. We are going to cut the cost of governance. We're going to make sure we do what is possible to make sure that there's a lean government. As of the time when this report came out 12 years ago, we're looking at a reduction of 220 agencies from the 541. But as it stands now, we have about 1,341. When we look at the body language of this current administration, especially with the timeline of 12 weeks for a full implementation, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm not interested in this Oronsanye report. The truth is that if you want to cut down the cost of governance in Nigeria, you cannot be doing it at the MDA levels. It has to be fundamental. That's why I'm opposed to the Nigerian constitution, the 1999 military-imposed constitution, which is not our own constitution. You want to cut down the cost of governance? Go after serious organs of government. I have proposed that we should have a unicameral legislative system. Only the Senate is enough. Otherwise, all these people that you have in the House of Reps, they are just contractors and extortionist, platforms. They are doing nothing. So that alone will give you an extra 1.2 to 2 trillion naira shaved off for government. You see, and then you start cutting. There's no time anywhere you get to now. Even local government chairman, they no longer use the MDAs, the conventional MDAs. They have advisors who are doing the job of councillors. The federal government has special advisors, senior, junior. Advisors have advisors in this country. Then the advisors will have cars, they have, security agencies attached to them. There's so much to be done that all this one you are saying is just paparazzi. It's just papering of, the walls. This is not taking us anywhere. Tinubu has the largest ministerial pool in recent history. Does that person look like he's willing to cut down the cost of governance? So they will do the mergers, no doubt, because there's a lot of dead agencies, including this. I heard there's an agency in Nigeria that deals with flowers, horticultural something. It's a lot of rubbish, loads of rubbish, but it cannot happen with these people. We have to go back to tinkering with our constitution and be very clear about which agencies represents what and what they do. It has to be a constitutional provision for it. Now, it cannot just be that somebody feels good when there's, people are making noise. Let's distract them with Oronsanye. Even the Oronsanye that did the report has forgotten about what he did, dealing with his own corruption issues. So that's not what we need. We know the reason they introduced it. It's because there's a whole lot of pressure regarding cost of governance. But if you want to let's look at the person who last week said you want to cut the cost of governance. The following week, you are going to Qatar with 2 of your children. Who's going to pay for it? Nigeria, right? Can't you ask them to stay home?
Well, we are not sure is Nigeria paying for that. I don't know if you have seen.
Who is paying for it? Are you the one paying for it?
They are 2 able-grown men. It's just
they are not paying for it. Anybody that is officially on that list,
I'm not saying
that
they
are
are.
to Qatar, the list that is public knowledge, is being paid for by the government. Even journalists who are on those trips are being paid for by the Nigerian government. I know that much. Don't forget We are all journalists.
Okay.
I am too, but of a different kind.
All right, talking about cost of governance. Yes. You have spoken, robustly about the retirement benefits of police officers. I saw your tweet yesterday where you talked about the fact that it is unacceptable that these people have served 35 years and their, gratuity is about 1.5 million naira. I'd love for you to talk more about that. And,
that's less than $1,000.
I mean, yes, it's less than $1,000.
And it's dear to my heart because obviously I'm the daughter of a police officer, retired police commissioner.
What is also interesting is that I actually don't like police.
Oh, really?
Yes. From my university days, I have injuries all over my body. My broken nose was carried out by police in 2021. But having said that, I think it's unconscionable. I was actually a police officer who stopped me 3 days ago in Lagos, and I thought he wanted to shake me down. When I lowered my glass, he said, "Oh, Mr. SOWERE, I have something to tell you. Do you know that we are being paid 1.5 million naira gratuity?" And I said, that must be some very gratuitous insult of a gratuity. That was what I replied, and I started tweeting right from there. It's very interesting that most people didn't know this. And it's also kind of interesting that the police in this country will protect with their life the people who are underpaying them in the ways that they've said. But you look at, as I mentioned, an average senator is taking home 50 million naira a month. It would take a police officer, do you know how many gratuities of police officers with 1 month's salary of a senator? But you then go back to governors who serve sometimes 4 years in office. And then they have all these allowances and gratuities. You can't even finish counting them. The one in Lagos, Tinubu started it. You have to build him a house in Lagos and in Abuja. You have to build, in fact, the house in Lagos is so luxurious. He was staying there before he moved to SOWERE. The house Lagos built for him. He's entitled to change of car every 2 years. He's entitled to police, DSS. He's entitled to 100 million naira medical, if he goes to medicals in Nigeria. If he goes abroad, the state is responsible for the forex payment for his medicals. All of this is close to several billions of naira just to take care of a retired governor who probably already also stole more than enough from contracts and several other things, security votes. And then the policeman who is protecting him after 35 years, an ASP takes home 1.5 million naira, which is less than $1,000 after 35 years. How does he survive? That was what provoked that. And it's very interesting that it became a major conversation on social media. I was surprised by that people were talking about it, even though a lot of people who are even talking about it are the people who fought for the police during NSAS. Yeah. And the police were the ones who also shot at them during NSAS. Like I said, I don't know how many people get beaten up by the police or roughened up by people like me. But in my conscience, I just couldn't take it. That our own police. And now it speaks for all the civil servants, by the way. Teachers are also facing the same thing. Doctors. Everybody who is a civil servant who works with the federal government takes home nothing. But a few of them who are at this highest position take up everything with them. And I think this is also an urgent matter that should be addressed immediately. Immediately. I'm willing to lead the police on a protest, but they said they don't have a right to protest. But I think it's our time they start thinking of this one has to do with their survival.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Before you go, okay. I think you did mention something about Mr. Orosanye's corruption charges. I just wanted to make it clear that the court has, yes.
Exonerated
him of corruption. No yes. Just to make that clear. That's fine. Not our stance here on our
I'm glad to hear that he got cleared and his report is now cleared too.
Absolutely.
All right. So staying with the issue of the police, and I like the fact that you're knowing your position about them, you are coming out to fight for their welfare and everything. But this is also the same time that practically the entire government machinery at the federal and at the states, is calling for state police, which therefore means that there will be more recruitment, going on. We're under policed anyway, and then you will have to bring in more money. But then at the same level of peanuts that has been paid to police officers, and it's not just the police. It's the same thing with the military, with the army, We know what a soldier earns. Even the chief of defense staff said it, himself, that when he goes on the war front, his hardship allowance is just about 50,000 or something. Salaries are between 50 and 60,000 for the lower cadre people. So much so that we saw on video that a soldier, a Nigerian soldier, says that he couldn't afford to leave Borno State war front and transport himself, and back, because that would cost him about 75,000. What are your thoughts on state police, given the low income that is accrued to the current crop now at this moment?
If we are going to, I totally support state police. I support state police, I support local government police, I support campus police. We need police everywhere for that to cover the whole ambit of where we need to secure in this country. But the crucial issue is what we are raising. If we are doing state police, the first issue we must resolve is how you get them paid and well taken care of. Otherwise, you have just introduced another level of banditry. You can imagine crossing from state to state. You will feel it immediately between the states whose police salaries are paid and the ones who, you get to the point where you can't travel in this country, except maybe we'll introduce drone taxes, but they won't shoot down your drones if they need money from you. So we have to resolve that first. And all these governors that are not even willing to pay 30,000 minimum wage, who are calling for state police, we must be able to understand that in calling for state police, they are not after policing. They are after how to use the state police to oppress their citizens, rig elections, kill whomever is against them. But let's look at it fundamentally even beyond that. There is virtually no state in Nigeria that doesn't have a police under the control of a governor. They may not call it state police, but they always have militias, either they call them hunters, or they add them, sometimes it's a cocktail. A little bit of army, police, they call them operations. These are state police that the governors themselves create to bypass the federal police.
So if they have that, why do you support state police?
No, see, what state policing does is that it becomes uniform. We can then decide that if you are going to set up a police, this is where you want them trained. They have to be trained appropriately. But we must also discuss their remuneration. Otherwise, if you give guns to people who are not paid, you have just employed armed robbers and kidnappers.
Do you think that restructuring, sorry, Shaitan, just one, will fix that, or what Professor Wole Soyinka called decentralization and reconfiguration? Given that this was where we were when we were doing regional governments.
So the country has already been restructured.
Has it?
Yes. It's just the restructuring is not economic. It's restructured in the interest of the powerful. You understand? Every one of them have enough police, they have enough gratuity, their pension is paid in advance. That is the restructuring that Nigeria has. What we need to restructure is how that wealth goes back to the people. That's what has not been restructured. That's why I'm not part of the restructuring debate. Because each time you ask a person who's proposing restructuring, it has to do with a number of things. After they lose election, or they are looking for position, or they are facing some charges, they start talking about restructuring. But when they get to the people that were most vociferous about restructuring some years ago are these APC people. Even El-Rufai, Tinubu, all of them. But now that they got to power, why are they not practicing what they had been preaching? It's because it was all a hoax from the beginning. And if you want to restructure Nigeria, look at the state governors. What they are doing. State governors who don't allow local government to get their allocation, they are shouting restructuring. Restructure the state first and you see development. Yes, most of these state governors don't even conduct local government elections. If they do, by the time we are the polling unit, the worst electoral commissioners in this country are the state constituted electoral commissioners. They are the worst. You can quote me anywhere. INEC is bad, but they make INEC look like the Pope. We went and did Ondo State election with our party. We were still at the voting place when we heard on radio announcement of all the winners as of 12 noon. We had not even started voting at all. So this is why I keep telling people that anybody that is asking for Nigeria to change, to restructure, decentralize, is asking for a revolution. Because that means we must take down the constitution that is holding all those things down. And you have to take a lot of people out of the way who benefits from all of this confusion.
Revolution of ideas, you mean, or what?
This is total revolution. The ideas, persons.
But that's what got you into trouble with
I wasn't into trouble. It was Buhari that was in trouble. Didn't they withdraw their charges? Didn't I not tell you from the beginning that they're going nowhere? I wasn't in trouble. They were the ones in trouble. They're the ones who had to go to court and shamefully said, we don't want to continue this case anymore. Even though I still have other cases anyways.
Yeah, but people would think you should be grateful that they withdrew.
Grateful to who? That you held me down in my country for 5 years, you seized my passport, you killed my brother, you ruined my business. I should be grateful for that. They should be grateful that I'm a peaceful person.
Amen.
Yes.
But to really back in, I mean, just before I go to my next question, still talking about state policing, there is the fear that, if, the governor, especially now that they already have access to DSS and they have personal security personnel, that if they are allowed to go ahead with state police, that the problem in the future would now be how to make sure that those governors are not abusing their powers. Is that something that you reckon is an issue?
That's that is projecting into the future what we don't know. What we know is that we are under-policed. What you and I don't know is that the police are not well paid. What other things we know are that the parameters for setting up police should be such that it is well protected. I want a clause in the state police that if any state is misbehaving, the federal police can go there and take over, like they do in the US, and take over other police. If they're involved in human rights abuses, if they go rogue, the federal police goes in there and take them out and reconstitute, or they stay there until there's order. But nobody should argue against state policing simply because we're afraid that the governor is going to be a dictator. The governors are using even the federal police to do dirty jobs now. You know what Wike and Amechi were doing to themselves, where the police was partitioned into two. The FCID people were loyal to Amechi, the state people were loyal to Wike. So regardless, the governor, we are talking about a future that is not about all these characters. That's why I support state policing. That's why I said every town should be able to have its own police as long as they are properly trained, equipped, and well remunerated. So that is what you have in societies where things function. This over-centralization of policing is our problem because every policeman in Nigeria must answer to Abuja to be able to do anything. Even if they stop you on the road, you can call Abuja. They will give the phone to the police. And they'll say, I'm so even if the person is fake, it doesn't matter. They'll let you go. And you might have a kidnapped person inside your trunk. But the standard and the competition that state policing will bring, I'm talking about standard, I'm not talking about our fears now, is such that if you go to a state, they have their laws. In fact, what most people don't know is that most of the laws in Nigeria are state laws. Most of the prosecution done in this country in most offenses are handled by state attorney generals and prosecutors. So what are we talking about? The state is already involved in law enforcement. So why don't you let them have law enforcement groups so that the laws can be handled seamlessly? Right. If you commit murder in this Lagos, it's the Lagos DPP that will try you. It's not the federal DPP. Right. So what are we talking about? The state is already imbued with all these powers to enforce and prosecute. Just put the infrastructure in place and ensure that they run them the right way. They train them the right way. They remunerate them the right way. And there are feedback procedures that if anybody's right is abused, you can take them on. So if I'm from Ondo State, I will ensure that if you have a state police, they have a tag that I can read, and to ensure that anybody can videotape the police and upload if they misbehave. So
that is the problem. Remuneration is the biggest problem here. That's what we're facing on the table. Mm-hmm. We talked about state governors that cannot even pay ordinary.
They can pay.
But why are they not paying? And how do you know that they will pay the state police now? And I feel like it's going to...
We're arguing the same thing. Yeah. Yes, they have to. That's why I'm saying we're talking about a future that guarantees all of us safety, security, and dignity. I'm not talking about
conversation on how to budget those funds as well for the state police. I mean, I think that's the big point. But I wanted to go back on the NLC protest because you made mention of the fact that this is all we have. This is all we can get from the NLC. Yes. And I'd like your advice now that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said that they are not the voice of Nigeria. People are not taking them seriously. He even said that they should go and contest for the 2027 election if they want to be part of the electoral process. What should the NLC do now at this point?
So let me respond to Bola Tinubu, President. What he was saying is ballooning. Reason being that when they wanted to come to power, did they wait 2015? They started plotting since, in fact, they practically hijacked Occupy Nigeria in 2012. That was where they started their political movement, the APC, from. And when did Jonathan come to power? I think 2011? Yes. So Jonathan had not enjoyed up to 9 months in power when occupied Nigeria happened. So what is he complaining about? And where in the world did he read, they don't study, that democracy requires that you go and wait for election day? Opposition starts from day one. Whatever they are opposed to, they start opposing it, with ideas. Physically, they engage in protests. France had over 6 months of protests, I think, in 2022. I think they are still protesting now.
This is the home of protest.
Exactly. So the US, you go to the US, people are protesting every day. There are people on the streets of US who are protesting against government. Some people go and protest against God. It's their fundamental right. Why would you now say that, the NSC should go and wait for 2027? The NSC already told you that they have hardship issues. Can that wait? You are paying, the only thing that's static since you came to power is the minimum wage. Every other thing, you met dollar at 700 naira, is now 1,600 yesterday. Before, in February, it got to 2,000 for 1 hour. Are you getting my point? You met fuel at how much? It's now at 650 or even more. There are places that are selling for up to 1,000. They met diesel at 950. Diesel is almost 1,500 across the country. So what are we talking about? So you want everybody to wait and die until 2027. But most importantly, it's also saying something that I think is important for everybody. Develop new voices. Because he no longer respects even the NFC. That's what he's telling you. And that's what I said when we started this conversation. The civil society movement in the country should also stop waiting opportunistically for a labor strike before we can strike on our own. We should be able to strike independently of labor. Let's flood the street tomorrow. He will know that there are real voices. Even this last labor thing, by the way, in Lagos was a joke. Police was distributing biscuits and water.
Wasn't that a good thing?
Celebrated.
Wasn't that a good thing?
Because it was a joke now. It was because it was a joke. How can police that cannot afford fuel, they are buying biscuits for protesters?
But let me squeeze in the last 10 seconds. You posted something about justice for all ain't specific enough.
Yes.
What is specific?
What is specific is, when you want to deceive people, you just say, justice. What is the meaning of justice? For every society, for every specific issue, you must be specific about justice. If it is civil rights justice, if it is social justice, even for me, social justice is not specific enough. We must go down to it. Is it economic justice? Is it cultural justice? Or self-determination, for instance. Those are specific types of justice. That's why I go to Nnamdi Kanu's trial all the time, because I feel like just saying justice for Igbos is not specific enough. What do they want?
All right.
Great.
Well,
Yes.
All right, then that's it.
SOWERE.
Yes.
On that note, would like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.